Welcome to Weekly Wind Down. I'm Sarah Sharp, a deal attorney who helps people buy and sell accounting practices. And this is where I open up a bottle of wine, in this case, Vento Vermentino Toscano, Italian, made with organic grapes, and discuss a theme that I saw a lot for the week because themes come up. This version is on location in the mountains, you can see. So I am in the mountains where it is much cooler. A bird just flew by. I'm going to drink this wine, which I've had before and really liked. This is happening. I'm filming this on a Saturday. Oh, I forgot to use this. This is one of those things that aerates it. So I don't know if it makes a difference or not. Like, what do I know? How am I going to tell? Anyways, this week, something that's come up an awful lot is personal guarantees. I think it's appropriate to talk about a little bit here at my cabin in the mountains, so my second home, because personal guarantees come up a lot in the context. Hold on, let me try this out. It's very good. Personal guarantees come up a lot in my deals, especially ones that are SBA 7A funded. It comes up in three parts of the deal. The SBA 7A loan, SBA will almost always require a personal guarantee. 2, in the seller note, if there is one, often the seller is going to require a personal guarantee. And 3, sometimes if there's a commercial lease, the landlord will require a personal guarantee. And if you don't know that and you don't see it coming, it can be alarming. If you do know it and you do see it coming, it can also be alarming, because essentially what a personal guarantee is you signing on behalf of the company's debt, saying if the business doesn't pay its debt, they can come after your personal assets, not just the business assets. So it's an enormous opening of an obligation. And a lot of times people will immediately say, I don't want to lose my home over something. And there is something that comes up a lot called in state homestead laws. So if you're considering a personal guarantee, a lot of times, your first step is to say, well, what's the extent of this, right? Sometimes this is also called a PG, a personal guarantee, or a PG, are not all created equal. So for instance, if you're going to personally guarantee the seller loan, and the seller is a nice person that you know in town, but you're also going to personally guarantee the SBA 7A loan with a giant bank and the federal government, who's more likely to really take you to task if you default? Probably the government and the bank. So those are different personal guarantees, just the context makes them different. I would rather personally guarantee something with an individual I'd be more likely to work something out with than with a bank personally. Same consideration in the context of a landlord. Sometimes the landlord is just a random individual, and sometimes there's some giant monolith that has an entire department that's, faceless, nameless automatons whose only job is to make your life miserable and find all of everybody's personal assets if somebody defaults. Also, the odds of defaulting on a giant SBA loan might be higher than your odds of defaulting on your lease payments. So, not all personal guarantees are created equal. Your likelihood of occurrence of actually them coming into play is different based on the circumstances, the nature of the person that you're opposite of in that debt. A lot of people will explore kind of ways to protect their assets. There aren't that many good ones, absent some completely irrevocable trusts, which is usually not worth it. I see all kinds of things, but the banks do too, right? You're not the first person to think about putting your house in your spouse's name. I hate to break it to you, but that is also where, if you're in Florida and you have a state homestead law that's really generous, your entire primary residence, as I understand it, in Florida is not vulnerable to collections if you personally guarantee an unsecured debt. So even if you have a giant mansion, that you just get to keep it. However, hold on. It's really good. However, there are homestead laws in California that say $50,000 of the equity is not subject to collection, but the rest is. So even within states that have homestead laws, they're not all created equal. So you have to consider that. Now, that would not apply to this cabin that I'm filming this from, right? Because I have a different primary residence. So they would be able to come and take this with the birds who are apparently nesting right there. They're really beautiful. So that's something that would be absolutely on the line if I was personally guaranteeing any of these three things: the SBA loan, the seller note, or the commercial lease. The other thing worth considering is not all personal guarantees are created equal just because they don't have the same terms in them all. Sometimes you'll see just a single sentence that says so-and-so personally guarantees this promissory note. If you're the borrower, I love that for you because you're not automatically waiving a lot of defenses. It's really common to see some super arcane legal language in promissory notes saying you waive notice of presentment and dishonor. Honor? I don't know. You'll see it. And it's what you probably will skim over thinking it's boilerplate. It's not. Having all of those waivers of defenses in a note make it, much less favorable to you. So the words in the guarantees actually matter. Those are the things that come up a lot. Obviously, in the SBA context, I encounter this a lot because people will say, I want to bring in an investor. I want to bring an investor who's going to invest and have 30% equity prior to us acquiring all of these businesses. And that's great. But if you have more than 20%, you have to personally guarantee the entire loan. So if you're in an industry that does a lot of 7A loans, you're going to see a lot of capitalization tables, ownership breakdown of companies where people are below the 20% mark. One sneaky thing that did come up this week, it's not super sneaky. If you have a spouse that has like 5%, and the other spouse has, let's say, 19%, that still counts as both of them needing to personally guarantee the loan. So kind of like how you can't get cute and put your house in your spouse's name and it won't be vulnerable to collection. Usually the SBA is going to count for the 20% rule as spouses ownership together typically. So, all of that can come up. If you're not expecting it, it can be alarming, but if you're uncomfortable with personal guarantees, you need to know that about yourself and make choices from the very beginning that are going to minimize or not involve that. And that's usually going to be avoiding a 7A loan. A plant fell in my wine. And also, changing the terms of your seller note or coming out really hard. One big approach to avoiding a personal guarantee is having lots of collateral. So maybe I could avoid one if I were like, how about this cabin? You would love this cabin. It can be collateral. Perhaps that would be helpful depending on the person on the other side. Those are the main things that come up. Watch out for these PGs. This has been this week's episode of the weekly wind down where I talk about themes I've seen in accounting practice buyouts in the industry. If you found this helpful at all, please like and subscribe.